Hi, so today we're going to continue reading about expanding west. And yesterday we talked about, or I guess it had been about how a lot of people immigrated from Europe, particularly Germany and Ireland, Germany, because there was people didn't like the government, and Ireland because of the potato famine. So remember, they relied on potatoes, and there was a famine, so there weren't as many potatoes as they needed to help the people eat, and so they moved to the United States. Remember, they didn't get very far in the United States, like New York and Boston, because they were um because they didn't have a lot of money. But then when they did move, they went to the big cities and worked in the factories. So I want to make sure I had the part about Germany right, and it said yes. They'll leave the country because of the new government, because there was a revolution. Okay, so today we're going to talk about slavery. Slavery spreads west. In the South, economic changes were taking place. We already know slavery was a big thing in the South, but now we're going to figure out why it moves west. Demand for cotton was high because cotton took a long time to pick and clean. Many farmers did not want to grow it. It took too long. In 1792, a young man named Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. His small machine could clean as much cotton in one day as 50 people could by hand. So one machine is taking 50 people's job. Suddenly, growing cotton became profitable because they could do so much with it quickly. So it took a long time to pick and clean. So they're going to grow it because they're going to gain money. Cotton plantations sprang up in the states such as Mississippi and Alabama. Plantations relied on slaves to pick the cotton. As cotton farming moved further west, so did slavery. So when we're talking about slavery, we have to think about this. They needed people. They should not have had slaves where they weren't paying them and treating them unfairly and just harshly and horribly. But they did need people because they need the people to pick the cotton. So they could have done it a whole different way, and we now have the slavery issue. But you can see where they're going to need people to pick the cotton, because some people say, why don't they just do them themselves? Why didn't the masters do it themselves? Well, obviously, you're going to need more than one person to pick the cotton, or more than 4 people to pick the cotton. But so you can see where they need people, not slaves. So they're picking the cotton so they can make money. Working to end slavery. In 1808, the United States stopped the importation of enslaved people from foreign countries. So you're not going to get them from Africa and the Caribbean. Despite this, the number of enslaved people in the United States continued to grow. The abolition movement, the fight to abolish or end slavery, also grew. If I abstain or I abolish something, I end it or I don't use it. Its supporters are called abolitionists, attacked slavery in speeches and articles as a terrible wrong that had to end. Sojourner Truth, who had been enslaved in New York, became a famous abolitionist. She traveled the country making speeches against slavery. She also spoke in favor of women's rights. So she's a person of color and she's a woman. So 2 things against her back then. White abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison started an anti-slavery newspaper, The Liberator, saying liberate freedom, in Boston in 1830. He said, I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising, determined as justice on the subject. I do not wish to think or write, speak or write with moderation, restraint, and I will be heard. So basically he's saying, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Slavery is wrong, and I'm going to speak that it is wrong. Frederick Douglass was another important abolitionist. He had escaped slavery in the South. Douglass gave many speeches about his experiences. So he's giving a firsthand account because he was a slave. He said, I appear before you this evening as a thief and a robber. I stole this head, these limbs, and this body from my master and ran off with them. Remember, he's a runaway slave, which he stole from his master. He stole his freedom. And we're going to stop there because I don't want to rush to the next part. So in things we learned about Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth. They're famous people that spoke out against slavery. Both of them were former slaves, I believe. Yes, both former slaves. I want to make sure I said that correctly. We learned about why cotton was important.